On a stormy night, a white horse emerges from the forest carrying a young woman tied up. Her blindfolded eyes do not see the path, but her heart feels she is being saved. An epic journey of overcoming challenges and love begins, defying everything you believe about courage and determination. Prepare for a story that will touch your soul. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment where you are watching from. The sound of rain pounds against the windows of the old mansion. Inside, there is silence. A silence that hides secrets too deep to be spoken. In the darkness of the corridors, a young woman with golden hair softly plays the piano. Her fingers glide across the keys with the precision of someone who sees beyond what eyes can perceive. But Clara does not see. She never has. And perhaps that is precisely her greatest strength. The living room clock strikes midnight when the music stops. Heavy footsteps echo across the marble floor. A tall man with graying hair and an austere face observes his daughter with a look that mixes indifference and contempt. It is Henry von Altman, a pharmaceutical industry magnate, a man whose empire was built with the same ice that runs in his veins. The storm outside intensifies, as if nature senses what is to come. In the stable, a majestic white horse awakens. Maximus, raised alongside Clara since he was just a foal. His ears prick up, alert. Something is wrong, very wrong. It's time to solve this problem once and for all, Henry murmurs as he grabs a coat and gloves. 25 years supporting a defective heir, a disgrace to the von Altman name. Clara feels the change in the air, that tension that precedes storms. Not just those of nature, but also those of the human heart. When her father calls her for a late-night stroll, something inside her tightens, a primordial instinct that warns her of danger. Even so, she follows him. What else could she do? The walls of the mansion in the Swiss Alps have been her prison and her refuge her entire life. The rain falls mercilessly as they reach the stable. The smell of wet straw and the nervous whinny of Maximus envelop Clara like a familiar embrace. "Let's take a walk," Henry says, with a false kindness that does not deceive ears as sensitive as hers. His rough hands lift her onto the animals, back tying her with ropes too tight for a simple ride. "Father, what are you doing?" Clara's voice trembles, not from cold but from a terrible understanding beginning to form in her mind. "What I should have done long ago," he replies, placing a blindfold over the young woman's already sightless eyes. "I can no longer waste my fortune on someone who will never be able to continue the family business." The property gates open onto the dense forest surrounding the mansion. The rain turns into a violent storm, striking man, animal, and young woman without mercy. The thunder roars like the earth's own protest against the injustice about to happen. Henry leads the horse along increasingly remote trails, entering the forest where the ancient pines create a natural cathedral of darkness and mystery. Clara feels every sway, every hesitation in Maximus's step. The animal is nervous, resisting the command of the man pulling his reins. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, they stop. The sound of the rain is different here, more open, less protected. They are in a clearing. Clara feels the icy wind cut her skin like small blades. "This is the end of the line for you," Henry says, his voice as cold as the night around them. "A shame your mother isn't here to see how her beloved daughter turned out. But she chose to disappear, didn't she? Perhaps she foresaw that you would be too heavy a burden." The words cut deeper than the wind. Clara swallows the cry that threatens to escape. She will not give him that pleasure. But her heart is broken, not so much by the abandonment, but by the confirmation of something she always knew. Her father never loved her. Henry releases Maximus's reins and steps back a few paces. "Goodbye, Clara. Consider this an act of mercy. Nature takes care of its own now." A deafening thunder tears the sky, followed by a flash that briefly illuminates the bizarre scene. A man with his back to his own daughter, tied and blindfolded, on a horse, abandoned to her fate in the wild expanse of the Alps. It is at this moment that something extraordinary happens. Maximus, the noble animal who grew up under Clara's care, senses the danger. With a furious whinny, he rears up, spinning sharply. Henry tries to grab the reins, but the horse is faster. A powerful kick strikes the magnate in the chest, knocking him into the mud. Before the man can get up, Maximus bolts through the forest, taking Clara with him. "Maximus, what's happening?" Clara's voice is almost swallowed by the roar of the storm. Her fingers, always so skilled at the piano, now struggle against the ropes that bind her. But the knot is too strong. The horse runs as if he had wings, dodging trees and leaping over streams swollen by the rain. Each movement is a silent promise. "I will protect you. I always have." The night wears on as the unlikely pair moves farther and farther from the mansion. The rain finally subsides, giving way to a sky that Clara cannot see but can feel. Clear, vast, punctuated by stars that seem to observe their escape with ancient, compassionate eyes. Exhausted, Maximus finally slows his pace. They have reached a small abandoned cabin used by shepherds during the summer. The animal pushes the half-open door with his muzzle, entering the modest but dry shelter. Clara is still tied, blindfolded, and now completely disoriented. "Where are we, Maximus? Please, someone help me." Her voice echoes in the empty space, answered only by the soft sound of the horse's breathing. Maximus approaches a low beam and rubs against it. The friction begins to loosen the knot of the ropes binding Clara. With patience and instinct, the animal continues the movement until finally, the young woman feels the ties give way. Her arms tingle as blood flows freely again. With trembling hands, she removes the useless blindfold from eyes that never saw the light. "You saved me," she whispers, hugging the animal's strong neck. "My father, he really abandoned me." The tears finally come, not as a timid stream, but as an uncontrollable torrent that washes away the pain, the betrayal, the fear. Clara cries until there are no more tears, while Maximus remains patiently by her side, a solid presence in a world that has just collapsed. When dawn arrives, announced by the birds beginning their morning song, Clara has already made her decision. She will not return to the mansion. She cannot. Henry made it clear she is no longer welcome. Besides, returning would mean putting Maximus in danger. Her father would never forgive the animal for his insubordination. "We are alone now, you and," she says, stroking the horse's muzzle. "But we will make it. I will find a place where we can live in peace." With these words, the extraordinary journey of Clara and Maximus through the Swiss Alps begins. A journey that will test the limits of human survival and animal devotion. A journey that will transform both forever. The first few days are the hardest. Clara, raised in a luxurious mansion, never had to fight for survival. Her delicate hands, trained to coax music from the piano, now must learn to collect wild berries, feel the texture of plants to distinguish edible ones from poisonous ones. Maximus becomes her eyes, soft whinnies indicating danger or safety. They follow the course of a stream, guided by the sound of the water. Clara wets her parched lips, tasting the flavor of freedom for the first time, sweet and terrifying at the same time. Her silk dress, once elegant, is now torn and stained, but that no longer matters. Nothing from the old world matters. Week after their escape, food begins to run scarce. Autumn approaches, and with it, the first warning of the relentless alpine winter. Clara realizes they need to find shelter, a place where they can settle before the snow makes survival impossible. It is Maximus who finds the way. As if following an invisible map, the horse takes a narrow trail that winds uphill. Clara clings to his mane, trusting entirely in the animal's instinct. The air grows thinner, the wind sharper, and then, when discouragement threatens to overcome her, she hears bells, small bells tinkling in the wind. "Sheep," Clara whispers, recognizing the familiar sound of the bells shepherds place on their flocks. "Maximus, there are people nearby." The horse whinnies softly, as if confirming her perception. They advance cautiously, guided by the sound that promises human contact, something Clara now both desires and fears. The smell of wood smoke reaches them, bringing with it the promise of warmth and perhaps food. Clara breathes deeply, trying to calm her racing heart. After days of isolation, the prospect of meeting other people awakens contradictory emotions in her. What if they reject her? What if they return her to her father? Maximus seems to sense her hesitation and stops. Low whinnies like a question. Clara strokes his neck. "It's all right," she says, trying to sound braver than she feels. "Let's go. We don't have a choice, do we?" A dog barks in the distance, alerting its owner to the unexpected visitors. Clara feels her body tense. The moment of truth has arrived. "Who's there?" The voice is rough, aged by time and isolation, but not hostile. "Please don't be afraid," Clara replies, sliding off Maximus's back. "My name is Clara. I am lost. This is my horse, Maximus. He brought me here." Heavy footsteps approach. Clara smells wool, cheese, and smoke. The presence of an elderly man, likely a shepherd. A blind, young woman on the mountain? And this magnificent horse. "Where did you come from?" The man speaks with a heavy accent, likely local. Clara hesitates. How much should she reveal? "We need help," she finally says. "I can pay for shelter and food. I have this." She removes a gold bracelet from her wrist, one of the few possessions she still carries from her previous world. The silence that follows is dense, evaluative. Clara feels the old man's gaze sweeping over her ragged figure. The torn dress, the tangled hair, the hands scratched by falls and thorns. "Keep your gold, girl," he says finally. "These mountains are no place for a young woman alone, especially one who cannot see the way. Come, my cabin is not large, but there is space for you. The horse can stay in the sheep shelter." Tears of relief well up in Clara's eyes. "Thank you," she whispers. "Thank you." Thus begins the first chapter of Clara's new life. The old shepherd, Anton, is a man of few words, but great compassion. He doesn't ask many questions about her past, respecting the young woman's silence on certain subjects. In return for his hospitality, Clara helps as she can, preparing simple meals, milking the goats, and at night, playing old melodies on the worn strings of an old violin that Anton keeps as a treasure. "You have a gift," he observes after hearing her play for the first time. "Your hands speak the language of music as if they were born for it." Clara smiles, the first genuine smile in weeks. "Music has always been my only true freedom," she confesses. "When I play, I see landscapes, colors, stories. It's as if, for a few moments, the darkness turns into light." Time passes. The first snows fall, transforming the Alps into a realm of white silence. Clara learns the rhythm of pastoral life, the simplicity that exists in the small daily tasks. Maximus adapts well to the routine, helping to guide the flock with an intelligence that surprises even old Anton. But the peace is disturbed when, one winter afternoon, unexpected visitors arrive at the remote cabin. "We are looking for a young woman," announces an unknown voice. "Clara von Altmann. Her father is offering a generous reward for information about her whereabouts." Clara's heart seems to freeze. Hidden inside the cabin, she hears Anton's calm reply. "I haven't seen strangers around here since last summer. A young woman from a rich family wouldn't survive up here, much less in winter. Look in the villages below." The men insist, describing Clara and Maximus with disturbingly precise details. They speak of the reward, a sum that would allow any shepherd to live comfortably for the rest of his life. But Anton remains firm. When they finally leave, Clara emerges from her hiding place, trembling not from cold, but from fear. "Why? Didn't you turn me in?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. "The reward." Anton sighs deeply. "Money isn't everything in this life, girl. Besides, I have my reasons for distrusting rich men who want to find missing people. Now we need to think it's not safe for you to stay here. They will return." That night, as the snow falls heavily outside, Clara makes another crucial decision. She must continue her journey, move even farther from her father's influence. Anton suggests a destination, an old friend who lives on the other side of the valley, an eccentric artist named Margaret. "She's different," he explains, choosing his words carefully. "Margaret sees the world in a way few understand. Perhaps precisely because of that, she will understand you better than most." When the first opportunity arises, a rare clear day in the middle of winter, Clara and Maximus depart. The farewell to Anton is emotional but brief. The old shepherd places a small bag of provisions in Clara's hands, and even more precious, his old violin. "Music will open doors that money cannot buy," he says, hugging her one last time. "Go carefully, Clara. And remember, not everything is lost when we find true friends." The journey to Margaret's house is arduous. Winter does not spare travelers, and more than once Clara thinks they will not survive. But Maximus, with his unwavering strength, keeps moving through the treacherous paths. As if the animal understands that stopping would mean death, he fights against the snow, the wind, the exhaustion. 3 days later, exhausted and frozen, they arrive at a strange building on the sunny side of the valley. It is not exactly a house. It looks more like a cluster of interconnected cabins with smoking chimneys and colorful windows that reflect the afternoon light, something Clara cannot see, but can feel. The warmth emanating from this unusual place. "Hello?" she calls, her voice weak after the grueling journey. "Can anyone help me? Anton sent me." The door opens with a creak, and the smell of paints, dried herbs, and freshly baked bread envelops Clara, like an unexpected hug. A visitor in the middle of winter, and with such a magnificent horse. Interesting, very interesting. The voice is melodious, with a slight accent that Clara cannot identify. "Come in, dear. You seem to have traveled a long way." Margaret is like nothing Clara has ever known. The artist talks fast, thinks even faster, and seems to move like a small hurricane around her workshops and studios. Within hours, Clara is bathed, fed, and settled in a warm room that smells of lavender and cedar. "Anton told me about you in a letter," Margaret reveals as she serves strong aromatic tea. "He didn't mention your last name, but it's not hard to guess. The von Altmans are not known for their discretion, especially when they lose something valuable." Clara feels her stomach sink. "So you know who I am." "I know you are a young woman who chose freedom instead of a gilded cage," Margaret replies softly. "The rest is just detail. Here, you are just Clara, and this is a safe place." The months that follow transform Clara in a way she never would have imagined possible. Under Margaret's eccentric tutelage, she learns to paint. Yes, paint. Not with colors she cannot see, but with textures. Her hands, so skilled at music, now create reliefs and forms on three-dimensional canvases. Art that can be felt, not just seen. True art does not depend on the eyes, Margaret insists. It depends on the soul. And yours, my dear, has as many colors as the rainbow you have never seen. Maximus also flourishes in this new environment. The white horse, now recovered from the trials of the journey, becomes something of a local celebrity. Villagers from the nearby hamlet come to admire him, bringing gifts, apples, carrots, hand-woven blankets for the magic horse, as they begin to call him. Clara learns to weave, to make pottery, to identify medicinal plants by touch and smell. Her music evolves, incorporating the sounds of nature and the stories of the mountains she now considers her home. At night, she plays for Margaret's friends, artists, artisans, philosophers, who gather to celebrate art and life. It is on one of these nights that she meets Eric, a young mountain guide with a deep voice and hands calloused by hard work. Clara sees him through his stories, the dangerous climbs, the dramatic rescues, the moments of sublime solitude on the highest peaks. How is it possible that someone who has never seen the mountains can describe them so perfectly in your music? He asks after hearing her play a piece inspired by the spring avalanches. Clara smiles. I don't need eyes to see. I have ears to hear the wind telling secrets, hands to feel the texture of the rocks, a nose to catch the scent of alpine flowers. The mountains speak to me, and I merely translate their language into music. Eric is fascinated. He begins to visit regularly, always bringing peculiar gifts. A stone with an unusual shape, an eagle feather, a piece of icy crystal from the highest caves. Objects that tell stories Clara can touch. Spring arrives, melting the snow, bringing new life to the valley. Clara feels the change in the atmosphere, in the behavior of the animals, in the smell of the damp earth. It is as if the world is awakening from a long sleep, and with it her own long dormant dreams. "I want to learn to walk alone," she announces to Margaret. "Without Maximus, without a guide, just me and my cane." The artist hesitates. "The mountains are dangerous, Clara, even for those who can see. More dangerous is living in fear," Clara replies with a determination that surprises them both. "I need to prove to myself that I can, that I am more than my blindness." It is Eric who offers to teach her. With infinite patience, he shows Clara how to use sounds, smells, and the texture of the terrain to orient herself. How to feel the sun on her face to determine direction. How to listen to echoes to gauge open and closed spaces. "The mountain doesn't care if you can see it or not," he explains. "It just demands respect and attention. Pay attention to what it tells you, and you will never truly be lost." The lessons are difficult. Clara falls, gets hurt, becomes frustrated. There are days when she wants to give up, return to the safety of Margaret's house. But something inside her, the same strength that kept her alive during that terrible first night of escape, compels her to continue. And then, on a clear summer morning, it happens. Clara walks alone for over a mile, following a known trail, using only her cane and her sharpened senses. When she returns to the starting point where Eric and Margaret wait anxiously, she feels a joy so intense that it overflows in tears. "I did it," she whispers, hugging her friends. "I really did it." It is a small victory that marks a great transformation. Clara is no longer just the blind heir who was abandoned. She is a strong, capable woman, determined to forge her own path in the world. But while Clara flourishes in her new life, Henry von Altman has not given up on finding her. The search, which began as an attempt to silence a potential scandal, becomes an obsession when he discovers that his financial empire is at risk. Without a legitimate heir, his company's stock begins to plummet. Investors demand guarantees. The board of directors questions the future of the von Altman dynasty. Pressured from all sides, Henry increases the reward. He hires private investigators, offers bribes to local officials. News of the missing heiress spreads like wildfire, reaching even the most remote corners of the Alps. It is a young shepherd, dazzled by the promise of wealth, who finally gives away Clara's approximate location. Not out of malice, but ignorance. The boy does not understand the implications of his revelation. To him, he is just helping a daughter reunite with her worried father. When the first rumors reach the valley, Margaret immediately senses the danger. "You need to leave again, Clara. I cannot protect you if they come with force." The news falls like a weight on Clara. Again a fugitive, again forced to leave a place she has learned to call home. The injustice burns in her chest. How long will I have to run? For how long will I be hunted by a man who wanted me dead? Eric, who now no longer hides his feelings for Clara, offers a daring solution. "I know a place. An ancient monastery built on an almost inaccessible slope. Few know of its existence and even fewer can reach it. The nuns live in seclusion, dedicated to sacred music and contemplation. It would be a perfect refuge." Clara hesitates. The idea of isolation in a monastery does not align with her newfound independence, but alternatives are scarce, and time is short. How long would it take to get there? 3 days, if the weather cooperates, Eric replies. But it's a dangerous journey. Narrow gorges, exposed passages. It's not something I would recommend under normal circumstances. "And for Maximus?" Clara asks, touching the neck of her faithful companion. "Could he make that journey?" Eric sighs. "That's the hardest part. There are stretches where we would have to climb. Maximus couldn't follow." The revelation hits Clara like a physical blow. Separate from Maximus, the animal who saved her life, who has been her eyes, her protector, her most loyal friend. Impossible. "Then we have to find another way," she declares firmly. "I will not abandon him." It is Margaret who suggests an alternative. There is a legend in these mountains. It speaks of a hidden valley, protected on all sides by cliffs so steep they seem impenetrable. The ancient shepherds called it Angel's Refuge. They say it can only be found by those with a pure heart and true need. Eric shakes his head, skeptical. Those are just children's stories, young guide. I know these mountains like the back of my hand, and I've never heard of such a place. Not all truth can be seen, my young guide, the artist replies with an enigmatic smile. Some must be felt. Clara understands this better than anyone. That night, while Eric and Margaret discuss routes and plans, Clara retreats to the small garden behind the house. The fragrance of the night-blooming flowers is intense, almost intoxicating. Sitting under the stars she cannot see, but knows are there, she plays her violin. The melody begins softly, hesitantly, a question cast into the universe. Gradually, it gains strength, incorporating the night sounds, the whisper of the wind, the distant hoot of an owl. Clara lets her fingers follow the path her heart dictates without thinking, without planning, just feeling. It is during this improvisation that something extraordinary happens. An unexpected breeze brings an unknown aroma, rare flowers that grow only at extreme altitudes, and with it, the distant sound of bells. They are not the bells of sheep, nor the bells of the village church. They are more delicate, almost ethereal. Clara stops playing, concentrating on the sound. It comes and goes, as if dancing on the wind. But there is a pattern, a direction. Maximus, she calls softly. The horse, who was grazing nearby, approaches immediately. You hear it too, don't you? The bells. The animal whinnies softly, as if confirming. Clara feels a shiver run down her spine. It is not a coincidence. It is a calling. When Eric and Margaret finally reach a consensus on the best escape route, Clara has already made her decision. She will follow the mysterious bells, let herself be guided by the music that only she seems able to hear. It is madness, perhaps, but her entire recent life has been a succession of impossibilities made real. I will not try to dissuade you, Margaret says when Clara announces her plan. The artist has always had an almost superstitious respect for signs and premonitions, but please allow Eric to accompany you, at least until he is sure you are on the right path. Reluctantly, Clara agrees. The young guide, although skeptical, does not dare to let her go alone. The following dawn, before the first ray of sun touches the snowy peaks, they depart. Clara mounted on Maximus, Eric walking beside them, carrying provisions and climbing gear. The journey takes them along paths that even Eric, with all his experience, does not know. Forgotten trails that wind through ancient forests, narrow gorges where sunlight barely penetrates. Clara follows the bells, which become clearer as they advance. On the third day, when provisions begin to run low and exhaustion weighs upon them, the trail ends abruptly before a seemingly impassable rock wall. It's the end of the path, Eric announces, frustration evident in his voice. There's no way through. But Clara dismounts, approaching the rocky wall. Her sensitive fingers explore the rough surface, feeling every protrusion, every crack. And then she finds it, a narrow opening almost imperceptible hidden by dense bushes. Here, she says, pushing the vegetation aside. There's a passage. Eric examines the opening, incredulous. It's too narrow. Maximus will never fit. If to contradict his words, Maximus himself steps forward, gently pushing Clara aside. With surprising agility for his size, the white horse compresses himself, sliding through the space that seemed impossible. I believe he disagrees with you, Clara laughs, following the animal through the passage. What they find on the other side leaves even Eric speechless. A verdant valley, protected on all sides by steep cliffs, like a natural fortress. Crystal-clear waterfalls cascade from the heights, feeding a lake whose waters are so clear they reflect the sky like a perfect mirror. And in the center of the valley, on a small rise, stands an ancient monastery, its stone walls gilded by the afternoon sun. The bells Clara heard come from there. Small crystal bells moved by the wind, creating celestial music that echoes through the valley. Angel's refuge, she whispers, amazed. It really exists. They are greeted at the monastery by a woman with a gentle voice and calloused hands. The Mother Superior, as she introduces herself, shows no surprise at their arrival. It is as if she has been expecting them. Few find the "Way to our refuge," she says, leading them into the cool interior of the building. Only those who can hear the music beyond the sound. The monastery is a place of peace and beauty. The nuns, only 12 in total, dedicate their lives to music, healing, and cultivating rare herbs that grow only in this protected valley. They offer shelter to Clara and Eric, and a large pasture for Maximus, without asking questions about their past or intentions. It is only after a few days, when trust is established, that the Mother Superior reveals something that changes everything. 20 years ago, a young woman came to us much like you, seeking refuge from a world that had hurt her deeply. She was pregnant, desperate, fleeing a controlling and cruel husband. Clara feels her heart race. A suspicion, impossible and yet inevitable, begins to form in her mind. Her name, the mother continues, was Elise von Altman. The world seems to stop for an instant. Clara can barely breathe. My mother is alive? The answer comes not from the mother, but from a voice that emerges from the shadows of the cloister. A voice Clara knows only from her deepest dreams, from the oldest memories buried in her heart. Clara. My Clara. The reunion between mother and daughter is a moment of joy so pure, so overwhelming, that even the most stoic nuns cannot hold back tears. Elise von Altman, now known as Sister Maria, embraces the daughter she had not seen since she was a baby. "I thought you were dead," Clara sobs. "Father said you had disappeared, that you had abandoned us." Elise strokes her daughter's golden hair, so much like her own. "Henry gave me an ultimatum when he discovered my baby would be blind. He said I could stay, but you would be sent to an institution far from us. Or I could leave, but I would have to leave you behind. He swore that if I tried to take you, he would use all his power and influence to find us. So you chose to leave," Clara concludes without accusation in her voice. "I left to find help, to build a life where I could receive you one day," Elise explains. "But when I secretly returned to get you, a year later, the mansion was surrounded by security. Henry had hired guards, nurses, tutors, all with strict orders to keep you isolated. I tried 3 times over the years. 3 times I failed." The revelations continue late into the night. Elise tells how she found the monastery, how the nuns welcomed her, how she found purpose in her music and in the medicinal herbs she learned to cultivate, how she never gave up on finding her daughter again, sending spies to get news, gathering resources to one day be able to confront Henry on his own ground. "And now you are here," she says, holding Clara's hands in hers. "The miracle I prayed for." Clara feels as if a circle is closing. The music that was always her refuge, she inherited that gift from her mother. The special connection with Maximus, her instinct to sense beyond the visible, also came from her. "What happens now?" Clara asks. "Will we stay hidden forever?" Elise smiles, and there is a strength in her voice that Clara never imagined. "No, my daughter. The time has come to reclaim what is rightfully ours. Henry may have the money and the power, but we have something more valuable: the truth." In the days that follow, mother and daughter plan. Eric joins them, bringing his knowledge of the outside world, his willingness to help. The Mother Superior offers the wisdom of decades living on the fringes of society, finding strength in faith and community. It is Anton, the old shepherd, who brings the news that will catalyze their decision. Having finally tracked Clara's whereabouts, through rumors and clues left by Eric, he arrives at the monastery exhausted, but determined. "Henry von Altman is in trouble," he announces after catching his breath. "His businesses are failing. The board of directors is demanding a legitimate heir to continue supporting his companies. And there are rumors of illegal practices, fraudulent contracts. This is the opportunity they have been waiting for. If Henry is vulnerable, this is the time to act." But Clara surprises everyone with her proposal. "I don't want revenge," she declares. "I want justice, and I want to use the von Altman fortune for something that truly matters." The plan that is born from that conversation is as audacious as it is inspiring. Clara will participate in the prestigious Geneva International Music competition, which will take place in 3 weeks. It is a competition that attracts worldwide attention, especially among the European elite, exactly the circle Henry moves in. Anton, who finally reveals himself to be Edmund Keller, a renowned composer who abandoned fame after a personal tragedy, will help Clara prepare an original composition, a piece that will tell her story, not with words but with notes that will speak directly to the souls of the listeners. Music is the universal language, he explains. It transcends barriers that words cannot. Your story, Clara, deserves to be heard by the world. The preparations are intense. Clara practices for hours on end, refining every note, every transition. Elise uses her carefully cultivated contacts over the years to secure Clara's entry into the competition, using her maiden name so as not to alert Henry. Eric and Margaret, who joins them after receiving Anton's message, handle the logistics: safe transport, discreet accommodation, alternative routes in case something goes wrong. Even Maximus has a role in the plan, although Clara refuses to reveal exactly what. When the big day finally arrives, Clara is ready. Dressed in a simple white gown created by Margaret, she walks onto the stage of the Grand Théâtre de Genève, guided only by her violin and her courage. The audience murmurs, intrigued. It is not common to see a contestant without sheet music, without an accompanist, and clearly blind. But when Clara positions the violin under her chin, silence falls over the theater. The first notes are hesitant, like a child's first steps. Gradually, the melody gains confidence, strength, becoming a sonic narrative of loss, fear, and finally, discovery. Clara plays her life, her journey, each note an emotion distilled into pure sound. In the third row, next to investors and dignitaries, Henry von Altmann pales. He recognizes his daughter immediately. The same elegant bearing as her mother, the same golden hair, the same determination in her face, even when all seemed lost. And somehow, he knows he is witnessing the end of his tyranny. The music reaches its climax, a crescendo of emotion that leaves the audience breathless. And then, the moment Clara has carefully planned happens. From backstage, a powerful whinny echoes through the theater. Maximus, the magnificent white horse, emerges led by Eric. The animal walks majestically to Clara, stopping by her side like a loyal guardian. "This is Maximus," Clara announces, her voice amplified by the stage microphones. "He saved my life when I was abandoned in the forest by my own father, Henry von Altmann, who preferred to get rid of his blind daughter rather than accept that she might have value." A shocked murmur spreads through the audience. Cell phone cameras are raised, recording the moment. Henry stands up, trying to escape, but finds his way blocked by security guards, previously hired by Elise, who now walks down the central aisle towards the stage. "My name is Clara von Altmann," the young woman continues, her voice firm. "And this is my mother, Elise, whom Henry claimed was dead. For 25 years I lived in darkness, not just from my blindness, but from isolation and lies. Today I choose the light. I choose the truth." What follows is one of the biggest media scandals of the decade. The story of the blind heiress abandoned in the forest, the loyal horse who saved her, the mother who never gave up on finding her, all captured in videos that quickly go viral. Henry is taken for questioning. His companies are investigated. His empire begins to crumble. But Clara does not stay to witness the fall. After her public declaration, she, Elise, Eric, and Maximus disappear, not to hide, but to begin the next chapter of their lives. A year later, on the sunny slopes not far from Angel's Refuge, a new building rises among the pines. The Von Altmann Institute for Young Artists, a school for children with disabilities who wish to explore their artistic abilities. With the portion of the family fortune legally restored to Clara and Elise, they have created a sanctuary where difference is not seen as a limitation, but as a possibility. In the center of the main courtyard, a bronze statue of a majestic white horse reminds everyone of the extraordinary story that made it all possible. And every afternoon, when the sun begins to set, Clara can be found playing her violin in this same courtyard, with Maximus grazing peacefully by her side. The music, She plays no longer speaks of pain or abandonment. It speaks of new beginnings, of possibilities of a future where limitations are merely challenges to be overcome. A melody that rises above the mountains, echoing the message Clara now dedicates her life to spreading. That true vision does not depend on the eyes but on the heart. And as the notes float on the mountain air, mingling with the sound of the crystal bells that still tinkle softly in the valley, Clara smiles. Because finally, after an incredible journey, she has found her home. Not a place, but a purpose. Not a condition, but a choice. The choice to live fully, to love deeply, and to never, ever let the darkness define who she is or who she can become.